Today we're going to be talking about the M1 MacBook Pro in 2025. Let's get into it. So I've had this laptop for 5 years now, and I honestly can't believe how well it's holding up. First of all, let's talk about the design. It's so timeless. Like, this thing does not look like it was made over 10 years ago. Like, this design's been being used since 2017. That is crazy. Like, how has this thing been going for that long? It's thin, it looks nice, it's got USB-C ports, so it's still very modern. And honestly, it's one of Apple's nicest looking designs they've made. I can sit and talk about the design forever, especially the touch bar. The touch bar for me is one of those things that I absolutely love, but the industry hated. I use the touch bar all the time, adjusting the brightness, volume in Final Cut Pro. It just works fantastically. I can't knock it. It's only ever crashed on me 2 or 3 times, and even then, it wasn't the end of the world. Just restart the computer, back to normal. Now that does move me onto the operating system. Now, since I got the Mac, we've had about 3 or 4 different versions of Mac OS. Each one has improved, and each one has furthermore brought me into the Apple ecosystem. I love Mac OS a lot. I think it's honestly one of the best operating systems. And compared to Windows, it looks nicer and it runs better. Windows for me was something I always used. And yes, I used it on cheaper hardware, but it's still, for me, just never ran as smooth and it was never as good. Now, in regards to the OS, obviously, when it first came out, ARM was a very new thing. There wasn't very many apps that supported ARM, but since I've been going on, more apps have been supporting it. Apple Silicon and been supporting ARM in general, so app support has got wider and wider and wider. So if you didn't know, if you run an x86 app on an Apple Silicon Mac, it will translate the app for you, so you won't even have to worry about it not running properly. Apple does it all for you in the background, and I've never noticed any difference between any of the apps I've been using that were designed for x86 and the ones that weren't. Even all these years later, it's still working great. Now let's move on to battery life. I have put prevention measures in so that it stops charging at 85% just to help the battery, and that's helped my battery life massively. Now it just means I've looked after the battery a bit better, because I still get ridiculously long battery life on this MacBook. Like, I could honestly not charge it for 2 or 3 days and it's fine, because I don't use it every single day. I use it maybe every couple of days, and there's just no battery drain. It's incredible how well macOS just handles sleep, because you can shut the laptop lid and just leave it. I very, very rarely shut down my MacBook, which I know is bad, you should do it occasionally, but to be honest, I can't knock it. It just works every single time. You lift the lid and the OS just runs as smooth as it would if it was a fresh start. Now that's not to say the battery life hasn't degraded over time. Like, yes, obviously the battery life has degraded. If I do use my MacBook all day, and I have been using it very hard, compared to when I first got it, it doesn't last as long, but it still gets me through a full day, which I still think is really incredible. For a 5-year-old machine, it's doing really well. Now that brings me on to the integration with my iPhone. Now it's furthermore got better and better again with software. They've brought iPhone mirroring to the Mac, and they've also got iPhone notifications to the Mac. So the Mac is doing more background processes by getting all my notifications from my iPhone and putting them onto my MacBook. It does a fantastic job with it, and I honestly think it's really, really good. I use the iPhone mirroring feature a lot more than I thought I would. The fact that I can just sit there, be on my Mac, and also use my phone at the same time, it's fantastic. I can't knock it at all. Now the only downside I would say for the iPhone mirroring feature, every couple of times you go to use it, it does prompt me to put in the iPhone password, which can be a bit of a pain if your phone's in your pocket and you're secretly trying to use your phone. Can be a bit of a pain. But other than that, it works really, really well. Now that brings me on to how is it holding up. 5 years later, as we've said, the design still holds up, the OS still holds up, the battery life still holds up, but how's the chip doing? The chip is still extremely powerful, and it does compare to a lot of middle-range Windows computers now, whereas when it first came out, it was more of the upper end. But that's not a bad thing. It's still a middle-range computer. It's still fantastic. And for me, the power is enough. It's still smooth enough when going around the operating system. You don't notice any lag. A lot of apps are still very smooth. And just using the laptop as a whole, I never really experienced any stutters. And considering I've got the base model one with 256 gigabytes of storage and 8 gigabytes of RAM, it just does a fantastic job at handling all of that. And the M1 processor was just so powerful that I could keep this thing honestly for another 3 to 4 years. I will keep tech for a long time. I think we replace our tech far too often when it can be repaired, or it just doesn't need to be replaced. Especially with stuff like MacBooks that are really expensive out the gate. You want that thing to last a long time. And that's why I try and recommend MacBooks as much as possible, because they do last. Contrary to, beliefs and what people think about Apple, their laptops do last a ridiculously long time. Now that brings me on to, should you buy an M1 MacBook Pro? I'm really, really inclined to say yes, because if you want to get a cheap MacBook that you can just use for maybe word processing and taking it to college, it does a fantastic job at that, and I really can't knock it. But the only thing with that is you've got a phone that's got a good battery life and it's been looked after well, because a lot of these MacBooks, the battery life or the cycle count will be really high. And now, as long as you find someone that's looked after their laptop and has been the first owner, it can be good. But I'd honestly be looking more towards maybe a refurbished one, or looking more towards an M2 MacBook Pro or MacBook Air, just because the M1 is starting to get slightly older now. So as much as I've spoken positively about it, we don't know how long Apple are going to support the software for. We don't know if they're going to support it for another 3 or 4 years, or if they decide in 2 years they're just going to stop supporting it. We have absolutely no idea what their software plans are. And yes, this hardware is extremely powerful, and it would be very unlikely they stop supporting this thing next year or the year after. In terms of longevity, it can sometimes be better to get maybe an M2, just so that you don't waste all your money. And that sort of brings on to my conclusion. If I was in your position and I was looking to buy an M1 MacBook Pro, would I? And I'd be looking at a couple of different options. How much is a refurbished or new M2 MacBook Pro or Air compared to an M1? I think that's the first place I would look. If the M1 MacBook Pro is drastically cheaper, go for it, because it's still a very good laptop. Aside from all the things to do with software longevity and potentially also how they've looked after it in battery life, those are sort of things that you can't really help over time. I think it's still a very strong laptop, and if you currently have one, you'd be very happy with it. And I think for a lot of people, that is the case. It's a laptop that's going to last a long time, and it's also going to keep people very happy. Now, it does bring on to the question. The M2 MacBook Air is an option, and it's something that gets the new design, it gets MagSafe, and you could potentially pick up a refurbished one from Apple directly. Now, for the price and for the money, it really depends. Now, comparing these two together, the M1 processor versus the M2 are actually very similar. This isn't the M1 Pro, this isn't the M1 Max. These are just the regular M1 chips. So, like for like, the M2 is only slightly more powerful. If you wanted an M2 MacBook Air, the only reason you're doing it is for design. Between the two, there's not much of a difference. So just go for the M1 MacBook Pro. If you have enjoyed this video, please do like and subscribe. And if you have any thoughts or any questions about the M1 MacBook Pro down below, please let me know. It's been Harry. I'm out. Peace.